The air smelled faintly of dust and cold rain. On the polished marble floor, broken mirror shards lay scattered, sharp, glittering under the dim light. Each fragment reflected a fractured piece of her face, and the pieces of a life she had never been allowed to live. Tawwan moved slowly, carefully, her steps quiet as though she feared disturbing the silence. She lowered herself into the corner of the old leather sofa, its surface cracked with age, its cushions worn thin. Her fingers, pale and trembling, slipped into her pocket and drew out a phone. An old, outdated model, its screen webbed with cracks that mirrored the one on the floor. She unlocked it. Her thumb hesitated over the screen, then tapped photos. A girl's face appeared. She wasn't a flawless beauty, not the kind of woman who would draw stares in every room, but there was a calm charm in her gaze. A softness in the curve of her lips, and in her eyes, deep, dark, and vibrant, there was a quiet resilience. Tawwan's lips curved into a faint smile. But it wasn't joy. It was a smile tinged with sorrow. The kind of smile you wear when you're remembering something precious you can never get back. That girl was her, the real her. This was Tawan Amarin, the woman who should have been known as the eldest daughter of the Amaran family. But the world knew another name instead. Aira, the Amarins. They were more than a family. They were an empire. One powerful main branch, 3 ambitious sub-branches. In that hierarchy, names were as heavy as titles, and bloodlines were currency. Tawwan belonged to the second sub-branch, the daughter of Father Jarrett. Her branch was just beneath Father Nawat's in the order of power. Her mother was a woman consumed by love, not the gentle kind, the kind that burns so hot it warps into obsession. She lived for Tawwan's father, bending to every whim, sacrificing her dignity to please him. When she discovered she was pregnant, it was the happiest moment of her life. Tawwan's father was finally present, finally speaking of the future. A future that revolved around the son he believed she carried. A boy who would carry the Amaran name forward. At that time, Aira's father was still unmarried, and the path to influence seemed wide open. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. When Tawwan was born, her cry filled the room like any newborn's, raw, loud, alive. Her father's expression froze. His hope vanished. Without a word, without even holding her once, he turned and walked away. To him, she was not a daughter. She was a disappointment. Her mother's joy shattered instantly. She fell into a spiral of grief and depression, yet clung desperately to the hope she could still win him back. But every attempt failed. Then came the final wound. Her father took another woman as his second wife. That woman was carrying a child, the boy who would later be Jarrett. Her mother's love twisted into jealousy and rage. She tried, more than once, to harm the second wife. In the end, her father had had enough. He sent her away far from the Amaran estate, to live in isolation at a distant villa. From that day, she ceased to exist in the family's eyes. Her name was never spoken. And so, Tawwan's existence faded into a secret. Aira, Nawat, Jarrett, Yala, none of them even knew she existed. Even the Amaran patriarch was unaware he had a granddaughter. On the day she was born, Jarrett's father had told the family she was born prematurely and had died. When Jarrett was born, joy filled the sub-branch. A son meant competition with Nawat's father's branch was finally possible. But when Aira was born, everything changed. The other children became like faint stars drowned in daylight. Aira's grandfather adored her openly. The patriarch spoiled her, lavishing her with gifts, protection, and every advantage. Meanwhile, in the villa far away, Tawwan grew up in shadows. Then, one day, her father appeared without warning. In his hand, a small teddy bear. It was the first gift he had ever given her. That night he stayed. Her mother, for the first time in years, smiled at her warmly. Tawwan thought, finally she would have a father. But the truth was colder. Her father had given her mother an order. Raise Tawwan exactly like Aira. Mold her into the same voice, the same gestures, the same presence. So one day, she could return to Amaran and win the patriarch's favor. From then on, her childhood became a script she did not write, At just 5 years old, Tawan was forced into silence for more than a year. Why? Because Aira had begun speaking at 18 months, and Tawwan was to mimic her development perfectly. Her mother hired a teacher, not to nurture her, but to reshape her. Her vocal cords were trained, her tongue forced to mimic another's speech patterns. Not to nurture her, but to reshape her. Her vocal cords were trained, her tongue forced to mimic another's speech patterns. Every sound, every tone had to match Aira's, and slowly, painfully, Tawwan forgot the sound of her own voice. Years passed in this shadow life. She learned to smile on command, to speak only words that were rehearsed, to become someone else entirely. Music softens to a whisper, but the mirror shards on the floor, they still reflected the truth. Tawan Amarin was more than a copy. She was more than a shadow. One day, she would reclaim her voice. One day, she would be heard. Because silence was never truly her choice. It was a cage built around her, made from the cold bricks of neglect and the sharp edges of broken promises. But within that silence, something else grew. A quiet strength forged in the shadows. A resilience no one could see, because they refused to look. She listened, to the whispered doubts behind closed doors. To the cold glances that said she was less than enough, to the empty space where her name should have been spoken. And in that stillness, she learned who she was not, so she could discover who she truly was. One day, those walls that kept her silent will crumble. One day, the world will see her not as a shadow or a replacement, but as a force all her own. When that day comes, her voice will not tremble. It will rise like a storm, fierce, clear, and impossible to ignore. Because the daughter they tried to bury is ready to stand tall, ready to be heard. And so Tawwan's story is far more than a tale of pain or loss. It is the story of a voice taken, and a voice reborn from the ashes. Though life forced her into darkness, shadows only exist because there is light somewhere nearby. For years, she was forced to live as a reflection of another, to wear a mask not her own, to silence her true self. But even in the deepest silence, her spirit never broke. She watched, she learned, she waited, patiently, for the moment when she could claim her place. One day, the walls built to hide her will shatter. One day, every eye within the Amaran estate will turn, and they will see not a shadow, but a woman shaped by every scar, every tear, every unspoken word. If Tawwan's story touched your heart, if you believe every voice deserves to be heard, then please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to follow her journey. There are many more chapters to come, and together we'll witness how she rises.